Classic Film Ideology, a special segment of the Catholic Men's Podcast. Advisory. The films mentioned in this podcast are not necessarily advocated as morally decent movies for you or your family's entertainment. That's a difficult and nuanced question to answer and varies from film to film. They are cited merely to analyze the philosophies contained in them, philosophies that shape our society, whether for good or for evil. The name's Sam Spade. I'm a private detective. Date, November 13th, 2021. Subject, movie villains. I was sitting in my apartment having second thoughts about my crummy life fighting crime. The room was dark. I wanted it that way. You would too if your partner had just been shot dead like a dirty dog in the street. I aimed to find the weasel that did it. The only light in my apartment filtered in from the bay window. Rain was streaming down it like tears. I walked across the smoke-filled room to look down on the twinkling lights of San Francisco Bay and contemplate my existence. Miles getting bumped off upset me. When a man's partner is killed, he's supposed to do something about it. It doesn't make any difference what you thought of him. He was your partner, and you're supposed to do something about it. And it so happens we're in the detective business. Well, when one of your organization gets killed, it's bad business to let the killer get away with it. Bad all around. Bad for every detective everywhere. What gives with the bad rap lawmen get today? Sure, we bust a cap here and there and we make a ruckus, but we're trying to keep mobsters off the street. And the movies today? Nothing but sympathy for the crook. In the old days, you were supposed to hate the movie villain and seek justice, but now they have you cheering for him. I had a wise guy tell me one time that the best movie villain is one you can sympathize with. That doesn't make any sense to me, but if you look at some of the big movies today, it's what they're going for. Take Joker, for instance. Joaquin Phoenix got an Oscar for his performance as that psychopath. Some films inspire people to do great things. Others contain beauty and moral meaning. Joker is only made to horrify. It proposes an anti-hero that's especially dangerous for our times. It doesn't surprise me that most media have delivered favorable reviews of Joker. The film was made to overwhelm. Hollywood pulled out all the stops to make the movie a blockbuster. We can expect to see the finest talent on display. The best acting, directing, and technical effects that money can buy. The intense plot development is what happens when a high-budget comic book fantasy turned horror story is packed into a 2-hour movie. The message is found in the plot of the story of a deranged young man working as an amateur clown. He's beaten, humiliated, and rejected in a corrupt, crime-infested Gotham City. His treatment by society leads him to seek revenge by murdering cruel businessmen and joining criminal elements. This young man becomes the Joker, who's the arch-criminal featured in Batman movies. The film is a psychological profile dreamed up by some Freudian shrink, but what really makes the film so toxic and dangerous is that it highlights the same psychological profile found in many mass shooters that have terrorized America with their killings. The message is that any isolated person who considers himself society's victim can become the Joker by following his dangerous narrative. But even the producer of the film, Warner Brothers, recognized the threat of violence by issuing a statement claiming the film was meant to provoke difficult conversations around complex issues, not to make the Joker a hero. But we don't need this conversation today. Law enforcement agencies nationwide were also well aware of the threat. They were on high alert during the film's opening weekend. There's also a second major problem with Joker. The release means we have a media and culture that demonstrate a willingness to promote a dangerous and false narrative that favors a bleak world. It tells confused young men how they might see themselves as victims of misunderstanding and uncontrollable circumstances. It mixes the class struggle poison of kill the rich rhetoric and action into the story. In the Joker's world, problems are systemic, not moral. Revenge is justified and possible for all of the world's victims. His is a nihilistic world devoid of meaning or free will and has no good truth or beauty. God has no role in this dark, twisted tale. In the words of Observer-reviewer Rex Reed, the film represents the soul of a monster in hell in a movie that borders on genius, repellent, dark, terrifying, disgusting, brilliant, and unforgettable. This narrative can serve as a warped model for those depressed and lonely youth that occupy the peripheries of our troubled society. But no one seems to care. While the Joker may not be a hero, he is an anti-hero of an anti-culture that is very much a product of postmodernism. It's a destruction of certainties. It's an anti-culture that cultivates horror. The film seeks to gratify our mania for sensations, even when they cause terror and fear. Remember what that wise guy said? That sympathy for the villain makes the best movie? There was one character called Thanos in the Marvel Universe that wanted to wipe out half the population on Earth so that the planet could survive. He had puttered around to a few other planets and done the same thing, and it saved them. Of course, Thanos was the villain in the story, but this wise guy I was talking to said he was sympathetic to Thanos. So Hollywood made their bad guy a climate change activist to make an understandable backstory. Some of these writers don't have all the cheese on their cracker, if you ask me. Now, I'm not saying that a villain should be evil just for the sake of being evil. He should have some way of justifying all the bad things that he does to himself. But there is such a thing as the mystery of iniquity. All I'm saying is that a villain can be understood to be evil without sympathizing with him, that's all. We do it with Hitler all the time. The bad guy can even be superbly acted, but we don't understand why he does evil. One of my favorite villain performances is from Eli Wallach in The Magnificent Seven, the one done in 1960, of course. Is there any other one? He plays a Mexican bandito named Calvera who pillages a poor Mexican village for food from time to time. Even though Eli Wallach was a New Yorker, he played the part beautifully. The bandito has a lot of class and is very entertaining, but yet we still hate his sin and want to see him brought to justice. In this scene, Calvera is trying to explain to the poor farmer why he has to rob him all the time.
My good friend, how are you?
You have a drink?
I can't tell you what a pleasure it is to see a village like this.
In the background, Calvera's men are stealing chickens from the farmers. He chews on one of the farmers' handmade cigars while he's talking.
So much restlessness and change in the outside world. People no longer content with their station in life. Women's fashions, shameless. Religion. You'd weep if you saw how true religion is now a thing of the past. Last month we were in San Juan, rich town. Sit down. Rich town, much blessed by God. Big church. Not like here. Little church, the priest comes twice a year. Big one. You think we find gold candlesticks, poor box filled to overflowing? You know what we found? Brass candlesticks. Almost nothing in the pool box.
We took it anyway.
I know we took it anyway. I'm trying to show him how little religion some people now have.
Thought I could see for myself.
Don't see!
When the farmer called out his hypocrisy, Calvera slapped him. His conscience had been pricked. Complaining about bad fashion and how little religion people have, and then stealing brass candlesticks right off the altar.
What if you had to carry my load, huh? The need to provide food like a good father to fill the mouths of his hungry men. Guns, ammunition. You know how much money that costs? Huh? Huh? No.
Later, Calvera even quotes scripture in defense of his behavior to the hero of the film, Chris.
Can men of our profession worry about things like that? May even be sacrilegious. If God didn't want them sheared, he would not have made them sheep.
And Chris simply responds,
Ride on.
You hear that, Sotero? Ride on. To me!
Then there's a massive gunfight. That's how you deal with evil, by speaking simply and carrying a big stick. Even Satan himself quoted scripture to tempt our Lord Jesus Christ when he was fasting in the desert. Jesus simply responded with, "Begone, Satan." But my favorite villain scene of all time is from the film The Third Man. The two actors in the scene are my all-time favorites too. Joseph Cotten plays the good guy, Holly Martins, and Orson Welles plays the disreputable Harry Lime. The film is set in Vienna after World War II, which, if you remember, was a hotbed of crime and general chaos, with the Russians, the Brits, and the Americans all inhabiting the same place.
The center of the city, that's international, policed by an international patrol, one member of each of the four powers. Wonderful. What a hope they had, all strangers to the place, and none of them could speak the same language, except a sort of smattering of German. Good fellows on the whole, did their best, you know. Vienna doesn't really look any worse than a lot of other European cities. Bombed about a bit. Oh, I was going to tell you about Holly Martins, an American. Came all the way here to visit a friend of his. The name was Lime, Harry Lime. Now, Martins was broke, and Lime had offered him some sort of a job. Anyway, there he was, poor chap. Happy as a lark and without a cent.
In the middle of it all and making things worse is Mr. Harry Lime, one of the greatest crooks to ever walk onto the silver screen. Lime's racket is stealing penicillin from military hospitals, diluting it, then selling it on the black market, injuring or killing many, even children. Holly Martins, a childhood friend of Lime, catches up with the racketeer and makes one last-ditch effort to make him see sense. Martins wants Lime to turn himself in, but Lime laughingly coaxes him into a Ferris wheel coach, and it is there, high above Vienna, that a tense confrontation begins. A clash of good and evil.
Oh, the same old indigestion, Holly. These are the only things that help, these tablets. These are the last. Can't get them anywhere in Europe anymore.
You know what's happened to your girl? She's been arrested.
Tough, very tough, but don't worry, old man, they won't hurt her.
They're handing her over to the Russians.
What can I do, old man? I'm dead, Hunter.
You can help somehow.
Holly. Exactly who did you tell about me,
I told the police.
Unwise, Holly.
And Anna?
Unwise. Did the police believe you?
You don't care anything at all about Anna, do you?
I've got quite a lot on my mind.
You wouldn't do anything.
What do you want me to do?
Be reasonable.
Somebody else
You expect me to give myself up. Why not?
It's a far, far better thing that I do with the old limelight, the fall of the curtain. Oh, Holly, you and I aren't heroes. The world doesn't make any heroes.
You've got plenty of
outside
contacts.
of your stories. I've got to be so careful. I'm only safe in the Russian zone. I'm only safe here as long as they can use me.
As long as they can use you.
I wish I could get rid of this thing. Don't try to be a policeman, old man.
What do you expect me to be? Part of
You can have any parts you want as long as you don't interfere. I've never cut you out of anything.
I remember when they raided the gambling joint, you knew a safe way out.
Sure.
Yeah, safe for you, not safe for me.
Old man, you never should have gone to the police, you know. You ought to leave this thing alone.
You have the impression that anything could happen. One of their lives could be ended right there, hurtling to the ground. It's then that we hear Harry Lime's justification for the evil that he did.
Have you ever seen any of your victims?
You know, I never feel comfortable on these sort of things. Victims? Don't be melodramatic. Look down there. Would you really feel any pity if one of those dots stopped moving forever? If I offered you 20,000 pounds for every dot that stopped, would you really, old man, tell me to keep my money? Or would you calculate how many dots you could afford to spare. Free of income tax, only. Free of income tax. The only way you can save money nowadays.
A lot of good your money will do you in jail.
That jail's in another zone. There's no proof against me. Besides you.
I should be pretty easy to get rid of.
Pretty easy.
Wouldn't be too sure.
I carry a gun. Don't think they'd look for a bullet wound after you hit that ground. Holly, what fools we are, talking to each other this way, as though I'd do anything to you, or you to me. You're just a little mixed up about things in general. Nobody thinks in terms of human beings. Governments don't. Why should we? They talk about the people and the proletariat. I talk about the suckers and the mugs. It's the same thing. They have their 5-year plans. So have I.
You used to believe in God.
Well, I still do believe in God only. I believe in God and mercy and all that, but the dead are happier dead. They don't miss much here, poor devils. What do you believe in? I wish I'd asked you to bring me some of these tablets from home. Holly, I'd like to cut you in, old man. There's nobody left in Vienna I can really trust, and we've always done everything together. When you make up your mind, send me a message. I'll meet you any place, any time, and when we do meet, old man, it's you I want to see, not the police. Remember that, won't you?
I've met a few truly evil people in my line, and I remember the first time I saw Orson Welles perform this scene. I slapped my knee and said, "That's it. That's exactly how bad people act." Harry Lime is full of contradictory emotions. He's self-centered, yet cunning. A playboy jokester 1 minute, and then complaining about his gastric condition the next. He finishes the scene with one last quip to Martins.
Don't be so gloomy. After all, it's not that awful. Well, what the fella said. In Italy, for 30 years under the Borgias, they had warfare, terror, murder, and bloodshed, but they produced Michelangelo, Leonardo da Vinci, and the Renaissance. In Switzerland, they had brotherly love. They had 500 years of democracy and peace, and what did that produce? The cuckoo clock. So long, Holly.
You know what that sounds like? Hegelian dialectic, which is coincidentally what Karl Marx, the father of communism, believed. Hegelian dialectic is usually comprised of 3 dialectical stages of development: a thesis, giving rise to its reaction, an antithesis, which contradicts or negates the thesis, and the tension between the two being resolved by means of a synthesis. In other words, all conflict is good and even necessary for progress. There is no absolute truth or objective reality. That's why communists foment conflict and artificial class struggle everywhere they go. This mixed up and immoral man is perfectly portrayed by the actor Orson Welles. It may be one of the finest villain portrayals I've ever seen because I feel like I've met him somewhere before. But for all that, Orson Welles is barely in the film. You only see the bad guy or the third man a handful of times. He hides like a rat and then dies like one in the sewer. It's acted out very realistically, in that the hypocrisy and bothersome conscience is written all over the villain's face. He has some joviality, but in the end, crime doesn't pay. Even if you get away with murder, your conscience will repay you with crippling guilt. And on that note, old chum, I'd better stop philosophizing and get to catching the weasel who killed my partner. But remember, every movie has a philosophy. You just don't see it at first. Don't watch anything that'll make you into a crook. Otherwise, I'll be coming after you next. Be seeing ya. Good night.